Hello, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Live. This time with Ling directly over to you from Oneflow. So nice to meet you, Ling, after the summer holidays.
Nice to meet you too, Laura. So good to see you again.
Likewise. While we're chatting, I'm just checking in real quick if everything is going live because I did get a message that we are live, but I just want to make sure that we are actually live. But while we're doing that, Ling, could you give us a quick intro to yourself? A little bit of your previous history and like not too much, but about branding. How is it that you're working out with it? And what are you responsible for at OneFlow?
Sure. So I can start with I've been a marketer all my life. I had my little agency, you can say, 20 years ago, and selling ideas, trying to make people feel like you can be successful through um, your own ideas, and as long as you package it right. And then after that, I've just been moving along the marketing career ladder, if you like. And today I'm the chief brand officer at OneFlow, and I take care of our content in-house agency creative team, if you like. And as of yesterday, we're 8 people in the team. So I have, a lot of people who work with brand and content and communications.
That's a lot. And when I think about one flow, there is one more than one, but there's a key thing that sticks in my mind is how you're working with the visuals. The content, great, but the visuals are something that is really attracting the eye. And every time I see the visual, I sometimes don't even need to see the logo, but I'm able to recognize that this is created by you and the team. So kudos for that. It's really, really nice. Everybody should go and check it out, how good they are at that. So today, we're going to talk about branding. Chief Branding Officer. You don't hear that much just yet, but we're going to talk everything about branding. How does it matter in the company for the growth? How can you measure it? What kind of team do you need to execute it in the right way as well? And everybody who is in the audience today listening, feel free to ask any questions, and Ling is ready to answer them for you.
Yes, we love questions.
Exactly. I can see that people are following us and we're very perfectly live. Good. So, Ling, in your books, walk us through what is a B2B company branding for you?
I I mean, I like to steal people's idea, and I do that, quite proudly as well. And I'd like to put together a definition of brand from Jeff Bezos and Seth Godin. So Jeff Bezos defined brand as, something that people say or think about you when you're not in the room. And then Seth Godin would say, it's something that influences their decision to. I'm sorry, my dog, by the way. Seth Godin Seth Godin said that brand is something that influences their choices to choose to purchase you. And I think within the B2B setting, that is very relevant because with the pace of innovation today, any it's easy to build a software, an
Yeah.
application, or something that it's easier today than ever. And so if you have a really great feature and you start compete in the race of who has the best feature, surely a great competitor will copy you or make it better. And so brand to me is something that is the assets that we can control to influence that decision to choose you rather than a substitute. So
This is very interesting. And by the way, so in your experience, how much have you been working with B2Cs and B2Bs? We could tip
in my
around at the top.
experience, yep. So when we had our own agency, so I co-founded an agency together with my uncle. So we have maybe 50% B2C customers and B2B. And then after my career started, maybe like 20 years ago, 19 years ago, and there has been B2B within a certain specific industry as well, within document automation industry until today. So if you don't know what OneFlow does, OneFlow automates contracts, so turning paper manually handled contracts into digital contracts. So I've been in this industry for too many years.
So interesting. And that's kind of a little bit of a flow into why I've asked the question about B2B versus B2C, because in
Right.
B2Cs it's kind of the bar is very high to what branding is, but it's kind of
Mhm.
easy to hit as well, like be a little different, the colors and so on. It's like really really heavy on the purchase, why, the packaging and so on. But when you move into something so boring as contract flow automation and stuff like that, it's like, okay, how do you brand that one? So
Yeah.
how do you look at branding for B2Bs for something that's not so exciting, so you don't just fight on features but you do stand out as a brand? What
Yeah.
are your thoughts around it?
Right. Maybe I'm very different. Maybe I'm very weird. Maybe I'm such a nerd, but I love B2B. I think contracts are super boring. It's very unsexy. And so the bar is actually quite low for you to make it sexy. So in my opinion, it's easier to work with B2B branding than a B2C branding because the bar is so low. All you need is to be, to be ballsy.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And but of course, I mean, jokes aside, I think it's important to understand what you actually deliver in your product. So our vision is to, say contracting one flow. So we want to be able to have in the future, when people think about contracts, they think about one flow. So what we actually essentially doing with our branding is that to create that mental shortcuts to
Mhm.
contracts whenever they see us, like whenever they have a touch point with OneFlow. And what we want to say with our brand is that, the experience with contract can be so really negative and
Yeah,
so tedious, messy, complicated, long, wordy, and the experience is very boring and very administrative. And what we really want to show is that our product what can turn that experience around so that it
yeah,
feels like magic. And I think that is essentially the message that our brand gives. It's not just, I don't want it to, I know it looks very cool, it's very pretty, but it's not just that. Like, and that is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that it has a connection to what you actually do.
yeah.
And a lot of times our visuals are very much, I would say a bit more premium than the rest.
Mhm.
It's kind
Mhm.
of, it's very retouch, is very detailed and it's very like well thought through. And the reason is because contract is such a sensitive document as well, and so people don't actually just let you take care of the contracts. Rather, they have to trust you. They have to understand that, well, we actually have the machine behind you to support such an important documents. So all these little cues that we have in our visual is to represent that security, to represent, the safety of, you can trust us with us because we're, we feel, you know, I hope that it does, and that it feels, secure. I don't know, I was just looking at this thing called peacock effect. I don't know if
Uh-huh.
you know.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
So when a male peacock, when they see a female, that they're like, this is so stupid. I don't know why I'm doing this live.
Come on.
And they will show off their feathers, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that is something that brand can, try to do as well.
Yeah.
Like if you show that peacock effect, and you would understand that, oh, hey, that is actually, not just attract you to your audience, but also to give that feeling, perception that um, you're actually more serious than, another person without that peacock feathers.
This is a very, very interesting correlation of ideas. Because what I would like to do right now, for everybody who's listening to us live, imagine how a contract automation website would look like, or at least what is it that people would be expecting to see. And when I close my eyes, I see squarey forms and like very detailed website, because I'm never a buyer. And I will be showing your website right now. I just prepared it just to quickly scroll through it, how different that is. Because what you're talking about is like, let me go to this at ease. Contracts don't have to be neither boring, but they're going to be taking care of the company who cares about the quality, but also cares about the seriousness of contracts as well. So this all this parallel gives an understanding for me how much you have invested into understanding your customers, understanding the use cases, and how serious they're taking that specific topic. Let me share your my screen just for 1 second, because I think it's really,
Wonderful.
really worth it. Have a look. So now we are at the website for contracts. Like, you both have the ease of the website. The colors are amazing. The retouche, as you're saying, it's like we did not just do it on, I don't know, Mid Journey, or just created click and go, whatever other software. But this is, I think this is amazing. Can you walk us through how did you work with branding when you started at OneFlow, and how are you working with that right now?
Right. So, first of all, we have a great team, and we also have a really good agency. And you can message me if you want to know the name of the agency. I totally recommend them. And what happens is that we always start with insights, survey, customer survey. As you said, a good marketer is someone who obsess about the customer. That's it. There's nothing else. You should be obsessed about the customers. And the same thing with branding. We want to start with insights. We did surveys with our customers. We did surveys with our employees at that time. And also surveys from our partner community, making sure that we capture everything that they are thinking about in terms of contracts, in terms of how they experience other solutions and stuff like that, and bring that ideas and themes into our brand. And so the main red thread that we found from all these insights is that um, the is what I just explained, like how contracts are always associated with something messy, complicated, and they wish that there was the magic wand that would just turn that all around, because all you want is to get a contract signed. All you want is to come to an agreement that everyone has agreed to the contract without a lot of going back and forth in your email threads, or trying to call somebody, trying to make sure that I send the right version, trying to make sure that all the correspondence within the conversation when you are negotiating are in one place, making sure that that stakeholder has the right version, and
Yeah.
all these things are just frictions.
Yeah.
And that's why we want to remove all that, and we put that into our messaging, fighting frictions, providing clarity, so that you can work better, and using the contract data to make better decisions.
Really, really cool. And Carolina has a question that is so relevant here. I'm not sure if that's too deep, but let's cover it a little bit. So, when you send out question surveys to your prospects or your users, what were the questions that were important for you to cover to understand how do they perceive the problem in the branding?
Oh, sure, absolutely. So then you would try to understand from the perspective of the customer how they experience it. So for our example would be, how do you normally sign contracts? How do you normally create contracts? How do you normally store contracts? And we want to make sure that we think about the terminology they use. So there are like 20 different questions, I would say, that talks around the space that you're operating in, just to understand the way they would use the product versus the way they, if they didn't have the product, how would they go about it.
Uh-huh. And the surveys, are those filled out or something you take it
Oh,
one-on-one
okay. So
conversations?
basically, just online survey, and then we did like quantitative interviews as well, and then also executive survey. So just interviews with executive. How do you see Oneflow in 5 years time, 10 years time?
Nice.
And yeah, and then we did a follow up. So we're actually planning something really exciting, and so you're going to see that more, in a couple of months, I would say. And we did follow up and see, like, has that really changed your perception about contracts? When you think about contracts, what do you think? When you think about Oneflow, what do you think? So our responses has been super fun, because a lot of people are associating Oneflow with rabbits nowadays,
Yes,
which
me
is
too.
which is typical.
You should bring them to conferences the next time you go.
Yes, and when we launched the brand, we actually have a live rabbit calling in from Zoom,
Uh-huh.
and to really, make that feel of, oh, it's magic, But
Exactly.
yeah, that's
Oh, very exciting. I'm looking forward to that. Talking about conferences, another note, like how your brand goes through. This is from my experience of what I have seen working. So, one of the things that Ling and the team was giving out at conferences was straws with
hmm
one flow brand. And it's like one flow and a straw in the mind, it even connects. It was so perfect. So we can cover the events and preparation a little further. We have so much to cover. And
right.
Stephanie has another question in terms of a
hmm
little bit towards the survey questions, but how about benchmarking? Do you use benchmarking for your branding as well?
Benchmarking, I guess, how do we measure the success of the brands? What do you mean by benchmarking?
I
What do you
would guess, Stephanie, if you could rewrite the question a little bit more precise, then we will cover that one. I have my guess, but I think it's not to do with measurement. We'll
Okay.
cover that. So let's move on to our agenda. So, how does brand amplifies all the other efforts in marketing, and where does it go further than marketing? Walk me through.
Right. So you talk about B2C, right, in the beginning, and they always come up with new visuals, new ideas, new concepts, and they use it for, sponsor posts, their ads and stuff like that. And to me, I feel like, the same way we would use our brand to with different visuals to improve the performance marketing side of things. So making sure that, the click through rate is higher, the cost is cheaper per click, um, and then the same thing with conversion, letting people stay on the website more because they feel a bit curious, and so they would scroll, and then we can have more opportunities to be with them. And that's one thing. So performance marketing. The other part, of course, is sales effectiveness. If someone has heard about OneFlow before, then it makes cold calling easier. You don't have to explain from scratch, what it does, and also when I would say, like, a topic opener. Like we normally would have people commenting about website,
Yeah.
and we get, feedback from sales like, oh, this customer really like our website. um, and then, of course, talent,
Oh, yeah.
attraction.
Yeah.
How do you have people want to feel like, proud about working at OneFlow and wanted to be at OneFlow? um, have that pride in them. I'm
Yeah.
proud to wear OneFlow. I want to represent OneFlow, and that's important. And that, the pride within our team is something that will help company grow. I really believe in that. If you feel really proud about working for a company, then you would feel like you own it. And if you
Yeah.
have that ownership mentality, you'll be able to find new ways, new innovative, creative ways to sell the product, to reach out to prospects. How can I make sure I get more leads? That kind of stuff. So I really feel like, it all stems into that pride, and that's how I see brand will affect, the entire organization.
I love that. And besides the website, that is obviously amazing, where does your brand flow through? Then,
Yes, so all the digital channels that you can measure and you can't measure. So events, I guess, and then social media platform, of course, and also from, hopefully, our employees, and they
Mhm.
can, do their own social media posts as well. Within the company, the brand is super strong. We try to make sure that the office feels one flow. Um, a lot of times, even the little cups, we would have opinions on, like, this doesn't look one flow, or the chair. Or,
Oh, that's
I mean, it's
nice.
so detailed. And even fashion sense, like, oh, this material doesn't feel one flow, but this does. Or, are you wearing that color code for Wednesday, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh,
really part of us. And even I realized myself decorating my house with the same colors as I do at work.
that's above and beyond, I would say. This is really cool, but the colors are nice as well. So that even when I watch some of the pictures from your office on social media and so on, it really does feel as one brand. It's like as if that website has moved into the Stockholm office. It's amazing. It's like
That's cool.
absolutely
Love
great.
it. Yes.
Let's talk about control of your branding. And what we mentioned at the agenda was that branding is the only asset that you can control. How do you feel about that? What else can you control as a marketer besides branding? Can you?
I would only say it's your brand. It's a reputation that you can control in a sense. Um, I mean, a lot of channels that we use are not owned by us. You can control your own website for sure,
Yeah.
but you can't really control competitors. You know, going ahead of you. They have more funding. They have they have better people. I don't know, which is weird. Like, why wouldn't they want to work at OneFlow? But anyway, the pace of innovation is so fast right now, and then also the markets external market factors are dynamic. They're changing all the time. Change is the only thing constant. But what will not change is what you believe, your values, the things that hold your people together, the things that hold the company together, the made up of your DNA and within a company. And that is your brand.
Yeah.
Brand is really the DNA of your company. It's not built by me, it's not built by my team, is built through all the people within the company. In some way or another, we pull that themes from everybody, customers around us, surrounding the company, and that is what makes the brand. And it's the only thing you can control, because you can control who you hire into the company,
Yeah.
right? And you can control how your product will be, heading in terms of direction. But you can't really control everything else, in my
That's
opinion.
Yeah, I absolutely am with you on this one. It's like you can control this part, and then a lot of things are having the ripple effects out of your branding. But it is so difficult to grasp because, as you're saying, branding is not your website.
No.
Branding is not what you put on the walls at the company office. It goes all over. So it's good job by building up something people can remember. There were even people commenting that when I think of documents and contract management, I think of OneFlow. It's like
Oh, really? Oh, nice.
exactly.
That makes
Why
me
wouldn't
super
you?
happy.
Yeah. So now we're going to move into the topic of measurement. And just to go directly head in to that topic, Morten has a
That's
question
your
that we can.
topic. That's
Ah,
your
it's going to
topic.
be over to you.
No,
So,
it's your topic.
so how do you measure or attribute value from the various channels? Is there one or two channels that you have found works better for branding versus sales? Like, kind of, how do you, all in all, measure branding?
Oh, it's so difficult. It's like a never-ending question. I think we just have to accept that some of the channels are just not measurable, and the channels keeps growing and it keeps expanding, and you can't just be like measuring one channel and make that decision based off on one measurement. It's like you said yesterday, was it? Where you had a little rant,
Monday rant, yes.
Monday rant. Really, it's difficult. We measure, the typical stuff, like brand related searches, direct traffic, social media traffic, that kind of stuff. Sales cycle, is it growing over time, or is it shortening over time, that kind of stuff. But it's so difficult. I mean, I don't really have the answer for that, rather
But
than,
let's put it the other way then. If you were to convince the C level
Mm-hmm.
that we need to do some updates with branding, not just improve our paid or organic or whatever it is that you can actually measure at least more.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Well, luckily, we do have a CMO at Oneflow who does all the calculations, and so brand is really part of the marketing spend, of course.
Mhm.
And then we try to make sure that when we do our calculation, that is also included into the spend. I would say it's about a split of 60-40, like in terms of brand ads, marketing ads, that kind of stuff. It has to be both. I
Yeah.
know that at one time I accidentally turned off our brand marketing ads, so brand ads, and that affected our sales ads immediately. So sales ads is more like conversion ready, like you click on that, we know that you're going to
Yeah.
convert, but brand is more like reaching out to the demand that or the people that you don't normally reach out to, and so without the brand ads, we also get less leads. So we
This
have
is
to
so
work
interesting.
hand in hand. And that was a mistake, like an honest mistake. We didn't understand it was turned off until we realized the lead has gone down. And then when we started to investigate it, then we realized, oh shit, it was because that was, off. And so that allows us to feel confidence that, they
Yeah.
need to be hand in
That's
hand.
a very expensive test, but also very interesting to see the results as well. Because if you wouldn't have accidentally done this, you would
Mhm.
always not really know and would just have a hunch. It's kind of working. We just don't know how much it
Yes.
impacts. This
Yes.
is really cool.
Yeah. And I guess you can always like, yeah, someone is measuring share of search too.
Yeah.
And that
Yes.
is something
On
that we
time.
try to measure in the past. But we still do that. We get the help from Google to help us to do this. But we realize that we're so small, like in this world of contract automation, that
Oh,
it doesn't really move, over the quarter from one quarter to another.
yeah.
So I think you have to be like, super big in B2C, automotive kind of industry in order to see that moving.
Yeah.
So we still measure it, but I don't really see how I can make decision based on that.
No. Yeah. Especially for the side. I agree with you for the size of the, like, how much you take off of all
Yes.
of the stuff that's happening with documents. Stephanie has clarified the question a little bit. So, in terms of what we have been speaking about, how to do benchmarks and prepare for customer interviews for branding, how much do you look into competitive alternatives, your customers, prospects you have, and
Mhm.
who you're competing with, really? So, talk me through about competition versus your brand. How much does that affect of what you do?
Right. So in the beginning, when we did like customer surveys, partners, market survey, that kind of stuff, interviews, we also, of course, look at competitors and how they look like, and then we try to identify based on our competitors, what colors are they using, what kind of identity they possess, or
Yeah.
what kind of brand archetype they are, and what do we want to be. But I would say, that is just a part, like a supporting, a complement part. You should always be yourself and not be affected, by, the opportunities presented because the competitors are not there. Because ultimately, if we're, being persuade or being like swayed in terms of decision making, based on what competitors presented
Yeah.
as opportunities, then maybe it would work in the short term, but in the long run, if you have to pretend to be someone else, it's not going to work, right? So it has to be authentic. And luckily, our DNA is, equals the opposite of what our competitors are.
I would agree. It's,
And I think in the larger companies, if you have a lot of budget, people do like research and stuff like that, like brand indexing, and
yeah.
we don't have that kind of budget, so we don't do that. But rather, we would try to do surveys within
Yeah.
our customers.
And Martin has actually added another question to follow up on the measurement topic. Due to the mistake that you did turning off the branding searches and all the paid media and that, what's your take on gut feeling measurements? Because this is where you're taking us right now, saying that, oh, our competitors are doing it like this. We don't have a budget to do all of those huge surveys. How much of your gut do you feel, and how do you actually figure out is it working?
I I I mean, I really want to say that I totally believe in data driven measurements. Like I really want us to be on that level, like data driven decisions making. It has to be based on data. At the same time, like if you don't, the risk of not spending money on brand is much higher
Yeah.
than the risk of spending it. That's my take on it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's another question, which is very interesting. We did not touch on this one. Do you do and measure impact of brand leasing, like collaborating with joint campaigns with stronger popular brands to help you amplify your own?
We do collaboration in a sense with the partners, where their products are integrated with our products. We don't measure because of the collaboration from branding per se, but we do measure the impact of the campaigns itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, like I'm paired with you, Laura. Of course, my brand is gonna go up when I'm paired with you. That kind of stuff. So your
Yeah.
brand is as important for me than as it is for. I'd rather choose you than someone else that you know could have booked me for the same time for a live LinkedIn.
Unless it's a client, then you don't say no.
Of course, I cannot say no to you. Like what?
Thank you so much. One more question before we wrap up. If you in the audience, if you've got more questions, we can definitely cover a couple more. But this is the final one on my list. So, how did you get me here? That I'm so excited about your brand, and how do you get everybody else pumped about your brand at Oneflow, Link, or anywhere
I
else?
don't know. I don't know about you, but I can start with within the company, and I think this is because you love hearing your name, Laura, right? And the same way brand would work with people, because what I see is that our brand is so exciting for everybody. It's because it comes from them. It all started with insights. It started with surveys, their answers, their responses, their words, and so it come from them. So what we just trying to do, within marketing is to amplify the words, the ideas that they already have,
Mhm.
through the insights that we collect from interviews and surveys. And so when it's presented, they feel proud
Yeah.
because it came from them, even though subconsciously. And that's why I think it's important to always start with insight, start with data, and then work from there. And because we're so different in the sense that we really truly uh, capture the weirdness of us, because we're all weird, but sometimes we're not open about exposing our weirdness, because it's scary, right?
Yeah.
And so I think our brand is bold in the sense that we expose the weirdness in us, and then all of a sudden maybe you're weird yourself too, Laura, and then you be like, what, this feels like something that you can't really say in word, but then it catches your attention,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
somehow there is some kind of weirdness in you. And I think in our brand, we work a lot with, tensions, conflicts.
Yeah.
Um, Contracts are boring, contracts are messy. And so we try to make our brand feels easy, feels clean. And that conflicts are always very exciting to spark curiosity.
Right.
And so that is also another thing that we have in mind when we try to work for our brand.
When I put try to make some words about your brand from what I've seen, for me it's mostly the website and what I've seen at events of the way you present yourself. It's imperfectly perfect because your website is absolutely perfect. In my eyes, it's like very aesthetic, really perfect. But at the same time, you do amplify that part that there is some imperfection in that part due to what type of people do we choose to put on our website? How are we choosing to present ourselves at the conferences and so on. But then again, the stuff you're giving out, the stuff you're wearing goes into the perfection as well, because you wouldn't wear whichever hoodie. I know that. It's
Yes, absolutely.
cool. Yeah, Morton has a comment exposing that weirdness make Oneflow really real. And that I absolutely understand that. And yeah, it's a very business professional, but customer doesn't know who the people really are. I love it. Thank you for that. And
Yes,
Dale has a
absolutely.
comment for you as well, saying that Oneflow website is
Aw,
stunning. Ling, you're doing a great
thank you.
job. Kudos for everybody who's watching you. All right. So if you've got any further questions, Ling, where can people catch you and have a further chat about branding or contracts?
On LinkedIn, for sure.
Connect with Ling on LinkedIn. Great. Thank you so much, Ling, for coming over to this session. First one after summer holidays. And see you at another event we're meeting again.
Yes, thank you so much, Laura, and thank you everybody for your attention. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
See you, everybody.